welcome to Blythewade Business News, where in this edition, I'm joined by Nigel Robinson, Chief Executive of Central Asia Metals, often known by its ticker, CAML. Central Asia Metals produces copper in Kazakhstan and also lead and zinc from the Sasa mine in North Macedonia. The company is listed on the AIM market with a market capitalisation of around £445 million. The company has just announced its full year results for 2020. Nigel, thanks for joining us. Can you give us a quick overview? What are the highlights operationally and financially, please?
Tim, lovely to see you again, and welcome to everybody. Yes, I'd love to. Operational highlights for 2020. First of all, the one very important thing I'd like to say is we had no what's known as LTIs during the whole of 2020, so no incidents on site, either at Kounrad and Sasa, which is a positive thing. In terms of production, we reached our targets, our guidance for 2020 production of copper, 13,855 tonnes, which is slightly over the year-end production target. And for zinc and lead, we achieved our target slightly under for lead by about 1%. So 23,500 tonnes of zinc and just under 30,000 tonnes of lead. So good operational performance, good safety performance in what was a difficult year, as everybody knows, with COVID-19 and also our TSF4 incident. And the financial numbers coming out of that are also very strong, with a strong EBITDA margin. We generated revenue of $170 million, slightly down with lower metal prices in the first half of the year, which also increased significantly in the second half of the year, which most people will have witnessed. An EBITDA of $95.7 million, which is a 56% margin. So maintained our low cost base. And as a consequence of the strong cash flow, which was close to $59 million, we're delighted that this morning we can announce a dividend, a final 2020 dividend of 8 pence. That makes 14 pence for the full year 2020, having announced an interim dividend for 2020 in November when we reinstated it post the incident of September at TSF4. So a good year all round in production, safety, and on the financial numbers.
I mean, Central Asia Metals has, in many ways, built a significant part of its reputation on its ability to return cash to shareholders, and the dividend's clearly been a key part of that. Great to see the dividend announcement this morning. Nigel, just remind people, what is the dividend policy at CAML?
Yeah, the dividend policy we've had for some time now, since we acquired Sasa back at the end of November 2017, is that we repay to our shareholders every year in between 30% and 50% of the free cash flow we generate from our operations at Kounrad and at Sasa. Now, quite clearly, the past year was unique in many ways, and we paid outside of those ranges, unfortunately, on both occasions last year. But we have, on this particular occasion, paid an amount which represents 57% of that free cash flow for 2020. So again, outside the range. But we feel that's giving a very confident message. We've seen an uptick in metal prices, confidence about the business and the outlook for the future, and therefore felt it appropriate that for this final dividend, we exceeded that range, having not paid a dividend for the full year 2019 last April when the COVID pandemic hit us, and also paying slightly more for the interim dividend if you look at it on the first half of 2020, which was a significantly challenging period for most businesses. So effectively, Tim, we've paid 0%, then 66%, and now we're paying 57% of the full year 2020 cash flow. Outside the policy, but we feel it gives a message of confidence in the business.
Okay. So a challenging year, a challenging couple of years for many people, but in 2020, you've passed, as I understand it, 2 significant milestones. Tell us about those.
Yeah, we have actually, Tim. One was in September of last year. It was 10 years since we listed on the alternative investment market of the London Stock Exchange. So that's 10 years in business as a listed company, which is a significant milestone. And also last year, we passed our 100,000 tonnes of copper at the Kounrad operation in Kazakhstan, something that we're significantly proud of, effectively. So 2 key milestones in the course of the year.
And let's now look, if we can please, at the operation in North Macedonia, at the Sasa mine, where under Scott Yelland, you've moved to a new mining method. Don't baffle us with science, but I understand it's cut and fill. Tell us about the progress of the cut and fill operation at Sasa.
Absolutely. Lo and behold, that I could baffle you with science, hey, Tim. The cut and fill operation, I mean, effectively, when we acquired Sasa, we went through a process of just reviewing and trying to optimize everything we did there. And as a consequence of that review by Scott and his team on site, we decided, and the board approved it last August, that we would move to this method of mining called cut and fill. It is a transition from what we currently do, which is sub-level caving, and it has a number of benefits. One, it improves, we believe, it will improve the safety aspect of operating underground. It will improve the manner in which we deal with our tailings from the ore that we mine underground. Almost 40% of it, possibly more on some years, will be stored back in the voids that we create. It thereby, relieving the capital pressures on building another tailings facility like TSF4 that we have. And also, as we go lower in the ore body with the geotechnical stresses, as you go lower in that ore body, it's a safer method of actually mining the ore body in a more accurate method. And therefore, we expect and we plan that we will get more metal for the ore that we actually mine through the whole of the life of mine. The life of mine runs out to 2037, just to remind you, Tim. So as we transition over the next few years to this cut and fill method, we believe we'll get a higher productivity and a higher output of metal from the ore body.
Okay. Now, you mentioned there, Nigel, the TSF4 issue and actually the new treatment of the tailings. Sustainability's long been a significant part of CAML's commitment to its operations. Last year, you did your first ever ESG report, I seem to recall. So TS4, unfortunate accident, we all know that. Remediation work is going on. So can you give us an update on the remediation work, please? And then also a little hint of what the focus might be for the sustainability in 2021.
Sure. Well, dealing with the first part, as you know, in September last year, just before we put out the interim results, actually, a couple of days before, we did have the incident, which was a significant incident for CAML in the 10 years that we just mentioned as a milestone, just coming up to that 10-year milestone. To have that was the biggest incident we've had as a listed company. I think we've dealt with it in a very open and transparent manner. One of the key aspects of it that remains outstanding, because it will take a while to complete, is the remediation of the river that we actually polluted when we had that leak from the tailings facility. We estimate that at the end of December 2020 that we'd removed about 95% of the tailings that have gone into the river. It's not an exact science, obviously, as you can imagine, Tim, but we estimate 95% have been removed in a significant operation we had running through October, November and December. And the final 5% we will catch hopefully this year through sedimentation traps. And a lot of the focus this year will be on remediating the river, biodiversity, planting trees, grass seed, etc., and looking after that aspect of the river and trying to get it back to the standard that it was ahead of the incident in September.
Clearly for yourself, Nigel, at CAML, metal prices are very significant. In many ways, a major influence on the share price itself. But as we sit here, the copper, lead and zinc prices are all performing very well. What's your expectations for those prices going forward, and what impact is that going to have on the company?
I mean, clearly a positive impact, Tim, because, our fortunes are very much based on the prices of the metals that we produce. We can't influence those prices, and we're delighted at the prices that are currently showing on spot for all three metals that we produce, copper, zinc and lead. Probably copper primarily, which many people are seeing as a very positive metal to invest in, given the way the world is going with renewable energy and electrification of the world. So we're bullish about it. But the key point about our business is we're a low cost operator. We don't have that much debt. We're paying down our debt. We paid $38 million off the debt in 2020, and we're down to a net debt position, which is very favorable from where we started off when we acquired Sasa. So we have a low cost base, low debt levels, and we can manage even at lower metal prices. But clearly it's positive for us as we see the metal prices and a favorable outlook for metal prices looking forward, with the demand and supply of industrial metals to change the world as we move out of COVID-19, hopefully. We're in a positive outlook for those metals, which can only be good for the price.
So the low cost base that you have is giving you some insulation come what may, but yeah. The copper price where it is right now is, I suppose, icing on the cake in many ways.
Icing on the cake. And indeed, the low cost base was a very positive thing from a business dynamic. This time last year, when metal prices were significantly lower and there's a lot of uncertainty in the world, that's when you need your low cost base, because that's when you can survive. I mean, in this current market, it's good for probably all the copper miners, whatever your cost base, because the prices of the metal are so high, and zinc miners for that matter.
Nigel, thank you for all of that. Before I let you go, if viewers were to take 2 key points out of these results, what would they be? And finally, what should we be looking out for in the coming months?
I think the 2 key points of, what the results that we've announced this morning demonstrate a very solid business, very solid basis for our business. And we're back into repaying dividends back to the shareholders. So last year we delevered, we paid $38 million off our debt. We're investing back into the business. We've reiterated our CapEx for this year and brought forward some of that CapEx. So in terms of what we can afford to do in the capital allocation, repaying the debt, investing back in SASA, and primarily a key point is paying a very positive and confident 8p final dividend, making 14p for the full year 2020 against very difficult circumstances for half of the year and an improving outlook for the second half of the year. What have we got to look out for? Well, we've got our production update for the first quarter coming out in early April, which will show how we're performing in the first quarter of this year. And also we'll be putting out our second sustainability report in April as well, and that will be to GRI reporting standards. So an improvement again on the sustainability report, the first one that we put out, as you mentioned before, which was last April. So lots to look forward to. And then further down the year, we'll be giving updates to the cut and fill transition mining method that we mentioned before.
Nigel, thank you for joining us. That was Nigel Robinson, Chief Executive of Central Asia Metals, updating us on the 2020 full year results. That's it from Blytheway Business News. Thanks for watching.